Hello, everyone. This is Lala, and today I'm going to be recapping and talking about the final season in Era 3, which is called 3030. I do find it interesting that this season is a part of Era 3, while the other two seasons that succeeded it, that they at the time were heavily trying to push as some sort of trilogy, are in Era 4. So it seems like they kind of just killed that notion. Now, my opinion on this season is pretty complicated. Obviously, we see a lot of the elements here that are commonplace in Era 4, like the Purge, though that started last season. We also had the Redemption House as well, which they tried to do on Battle of the XS2, but they didn't formulate it well enough to the point where we saw it on TV, which we did, or which is the case for this season, and that'll also be a thing on Era 4 as well, especially with Final Reckoning. And we have a huge increase of the to be continued episodes, which was very annoying to watch. But when it comes to the actual format of the game, I did like it pretty much. Where obviously, last place, actually, no, if you win the daily, you win power, you get to choose one of the two opponents to go into elimination. So that happened, and then whomever loses ends up going into the double cross, and then whoever pulled the double cross had to choose someone in that group to send into elimination. So it's kind of similar to the kill card. You could say that the format of this season was pretty similar to Free Agents, where some dailies were huge teams, others were in partners, others were in individual, and all of that. There was definitely a decent amount of drama in the season, and a lot of it did come at the all of the drama in the season was gameplay focused, though there was quite a few icky moments in the season that really holds the season back. I really didn't like the Shane and Simone situation and how they tried to spin it like both sides were equal in it when really Shane was in the wrong. And of course, there's the whole racism scandal with Camilla and Leroy, where they enabled her for way too long. She was doing stuff like this from the beginning, and the only reason why they showed it was because the cast got sick and tired of it. And that situation was just really, really, really ugly to watch. And due to the backlash, they then decided to purple Camilla, though if they handled it like how they should have handled it in the house with really removing her, the season would have been much better and they wouldn't have been in this predicament. I do think that the Redemption House was kind of overused, especially with the third round that they did, and then they did that purge at the end. So while the format was pretty simple, or at least compared to the next few seasons, you could see some of the elements that made it more convoluted than a lot of the others in the era. I also question them mentioning how they cast the quote unquote dirtiest players ever on this season, though when you look at some of the challengers, they aren't dirty at all. But I guess that was just a cheap marketing ploy more than anything else. Uh, the cast arrives to Colombia to compete for $1 million, which is a huge prize increase compared to literally every other predecessor, and it'll continue from here on out. And TG talks about them being the shadiest, dirtiest, most conniving players ever, which is such a lie. And CT is arriving late because of some passport issues, where he had to fly back to the US to get a new passport, so they're hoping that he will arrive on time. They all go to the house, and Camilla admits to using intimidation to getting what she wants. Derek and Tori are dating, where they were on Are You the One second chances together. We see Darrell Derek giving Derek some advice, and Anissa talks about going to school for psychology, hence her not being on the last few seasons. Johnny talks about leaving Paula on an island, destroying Kara and Abe's relationship for money, and stealing money from Sarah, which he is so proud of, even until this day he won't shut up about it. Corey is gawking at the woman to Derek, and Jenna knows that she's associated with some bad people, i.e. Kayla. Tony broke up with his first child's mother, i.e. Madison, and is now with his second child's mother, i.e. Alyssa, and is hoping to go to the end with his brother, which of course doesn't end well. Ashley and Amanda are good and they're enjoying their time together, where Kayla and Jenna call out Corey for doing women the way he has and doing the show to hook up with women, so there's some tension between the two of them from last season. Corey talks about how now he wants to have Veronica, and Anissa also talks about her poor history with Corey this season as well, and Camilla doesn't care for him anymore. Anissa tells Veronica to run away from Corey as he tries to make his move on her, and there's some weirdness here too. Ashley is complaining about how they have not slept in 48 hours as she lost all of her suitcases on the plane, where her special bra, as she just got a boob job, so she is starting to lose it. Ashley writes to Cara Maria about how she wants to go, and Cara Maria is definitely encouraging her to leave. What is there to say about Ashley? Apparently, she did Champs vs. Stars between this and last season, and her father recently passed away. Hopefully, I'm remembering that correctly, in addition to some luggage stuff, so it's best that she left. She didn't even get to do the promo photos or the confessionals with how early she left. The cast didn't even realize that Ashley left in the next morning, and Simone is still throwing shade at her, so the dislike is still there after Rivals 3. TJ announces that the first challenge is a purge, and they still aren't replacing CT due to privilege, presumably. And TJ announces that the bottom 6 players are getting booted, and it's the bottom 3 for each gender. Durrell is sure that he'll make it through, and Tori throws some shade at the older women vets, and people are making their predictions about who will be purged. So there's essentially like 3 stages to the purge. The first one is running to grab a bear and want to get back to the finish line where the top 4 are safe, which is Bananas, Hunter, Jordan, and Derek in that order for the guys, and Kayla, Camilla, Anissa, and Tori in that order for the women. The second round involves the teams running together, 2 teams running together to grab 2 cannons and to roll it back up, where the blue team is safe. I don't even care to recap who is on this blue team. The final round involves 10 players where they have to grab a cannonball and to put it in a cannon where the 2 winners will have to choose which of the 3 guys and women are going home. Devin makes a deal with Corey to save one another and is expecting Corey to save him, since he doesn't have many relationships with people. Corey and Jenna do win, where Jenna chooses to send home Simone, who is salty since they apparently follow one another on social media, Amanda, due to the drama last season, and Latoya, as she doesn't think she can trust her, saving Jimmy, who doesn't feel like she owes Janet anything, and this will quickly come up in a few episodes. Corey chooses to send home Devin, who is untrustworthy, so that attempted deal went nowhere, Shane, as he has no history with him, and Darrell, because he sees Darrell as a threat, and Darrell wants to go at him on the next challenge, but that never really materializes, saving Tony because he has kids, despite Darrell also having kids, which Darrell points out. He should have just said that they have history together as to why he's saving Tony. The 6 eliminated people arrive to the Redemption House. TJ arrives to the house to announce the twist. I don't know why Simone, out of all people, is shocked by this, since her first season also had a returnee twist. And obviously, most of them wants to go after Corey and Jenna. Brittany knows that she is rooming with the other rookie, so she is closing up to Corey and plans to get with the veterans. CT and Brianna arrive in the house as she is replacing Ashley, and her friend CT is there, while Leroy isn't happy about it. Bananas tells CT about the purge and how so the newbies, i.e. the young bucks, feel like it is their season. Corey and Kayla are talking about their history, and Corey feels awkward due to Kayla, Anissa, and Kamala being in the house. Anissa tells Corey that he's the only person she has been with on the actual show, like on camera. He mentions that he cheated on his girlfriend for her, like that's some compliment. But it ends up with the 2 of them kind of kissing one another, or at least that's how it appears. Apparently, this didn't exactly happen the way that it did, or it looked on camera. Kamala and Corey sneak off, and it's clear on what they are doing, where a few of the others follow them, so Corey is up to his fuckboy antics yet again. Kayla is the only one out of Corey's exes who didn't get any, but she does have a boyfriend. But that wouldn't stop her in future seasons, so. Anyways, we go back to the Redemption House, where Devin came up with some sort of song, and they're seemingly having a good time. For now, and we see Simone giving her sidekick readings. Kamala and Corey talk about their tries, and many people are talking about it as well. The daily is Cool Under Fire, which involves them holding on to the wall above the ocean while others slingshot tomatoes at them, where this is a pretty fun one in my opinion. Sam, Cara Maria, Nicole, Bananas, CT, Camilla, and Tori do end up winning the daily, and they can pick anyone they want to go into the. Derek H knows that his butt is on the line as a rookie, and the main veterans in CT, Leroy, and Bananas are talking about how Corey has a huge target on his back for sending home Daryl. And Leroy mentions that in the confession that what Corey did is smart, but he was dumb enough to say it out loud for saying that he's gunning after all of the big time events. We go back to the redemption house where we see Simone and Shane arguing about him greasing her hair and he refused to. Latoya initially refused, but there's no additional context about it. Shane is a hairdresser, so she thought that it was weird, where she cleans and cooks for everyone. We skip an hour later, and then it shows that they were talking and that they didn't actually show what they were talking about. But what we've learned since, and what was reported, is that they were actually talking about race on MTV, specifically about black women. Simone was talking about how black women, i.e., monoracial, unambiguous, black women, are not really visible on the show and they prefer their mixed race women like Anissa and Jonay. Shane, for some reason, took offense to this, even though he himself isn't black and she didn't diss anyone, and he felt like he needed to defend Jonay because he felt like Simone was saying that she wasn't black, because she lived in the upper class. One, living in the upper class doesn't determine whether you are black or not. And Simone isn't wrong about there being a difference between a mixed woman and a dark skinned, monoracial black woman. Obviously. For some reason, he felt the need to slap her twice and then she clawed his face out, where there are a bunch of marks on his face. That we actually do see the marks, though we don't see the fight. Devin had to put him in a chokehold where Shane then bit Devin's arm. Simone grabbed a bottle and broke it, and we do see the remnants of the broken bottle, so both Shane and Simone are sent home. The entire situation is messy and sad. Shane continuously denied hitting Simone when literally everyone else that was there confirmed it happened. And we've seen both him and Tony have issues with boundaries and violence. He's one of the few bloodlines to actually get a second season, and he blew it. Good riddance regarding being on the show. Simone was setting boundaries regarding black people, specifically black women, describing their plight and their issues, but MTV painted her as an angry black woman, and she was physically attacked for it. People lose their mind when black people put expectation and boundaries on blackness and what we are allowed to keep for ourselves. I do see why they sent her home for the smashed bottle, because obviously that's a liability, and with smashed bottles, that crap can go any and everywhere, and you don't even see half of it, anyways, and the lingering effects of all that. Neither one of them were good competitors, and with this incident, it made sense why they never came back, though I do feel bad for Simone. Cara Maria mentioned that Brianna should be thrown in because she came in late, and when she, i.e., Cara Maria, was late on 2 seasons, she was thrown in consistently. The winners talk about how Derek and Emma are new, and Corey is not good in finals, and is after the winners. Though Camilla does defend Corey, despite her telling people that he shit the bed in the final, which caused her to lose last season, and Tori is trying to defend her boyfriend. Corey admits that he is going after Derek, Bananas, and CT. Why admit it, even when you have nothing to lose? Camilla Brancher wrote on Hunter, where a lot of the vets don't trust her anymore due to this. Corey and Brianna are nominated for elimination, where all the losers have to pack their bags for the elimination. So it's essentially like free agents. Corey is proud that Camilla went out of her way to protect him, and Brianna is ranting to Emma and Brittany about being sent in due to being late, since she didn't tell Ashley to leave. So she really shouldn't get flack for it, or at least that's how Brianna sees it. Camilla is called out for her blown vote by Bananas since she claimed that Corey lost her the final last season, and she doesn't feel the need to explain herself to anyone regarding her vote. There is the double cross where people up for elimination have to pull it. If you don't pull the double cross, nothing really happens and you're still eligible to be chosen. But if you do pull the double cross, not only are you safe, but you choose the other opponent to go into the elimination. Dario chooses to save Leroy and to send in Derek, and Veronica chooses to send in Brittany, saving Jemmy and Jenna. Balls to the wall is the elimination where they have to pull the balls through the wall. And the balls are attached to a pole and the ball is on fire. And I do like this elimination. Corey wins the elimination against Derek, where most of the cast isn't happy because they wanted Corey gone, and Tori is sad that her boyfriend is gone. Brittany also beats Brianna in the elimination, where the two eliminated people are sent to the redemption house. Emma is talking about their gender, and we see Leeway being taught how to swim by a rookie, which is just ridiculous. Leeway's done how many seasons of the challenge, and the fact that he had to be taught by a rookie how to swim is just mind boggling. Anyways, Bananas makes fun of Nicole for having fake hair and fake lips, where he uses her masks, which I'm just gonna move on. The daily is Battle Royale, where they have to get 5 rings from the opponent's pole and pull it towards their own pole, and this is decent enough. Nicole and Emma are automatically in the losers group for elimination because they weren't chosen to be on the team. It's a fun daily where there's a lot of contact, but it's nothing too serious. The Great Team wins a close one, partially due to Veronica wrestling Brittany, but the team will choose one guy and one girl to nominate. The cast arrives home from the challenge, and the Young Bucks, which are Nelson, Corey, and Hunter, know that they are on the out, and they aren't shocked that they are put on separate teams. So, more of them would be vulnerable for elimination. CT tells Johnny, Leroy, and Jordan, and probably someone else, that the Young Bucks are going to gather a bunch of votes or attempt to do so, and Jemmy notes how close Jenna and Kayla are, which is a target on them. We also see Marie, Anissa, and Veronica talking about the same thing, so people want to send in the two women against one another, though Anissa does find it weird that Marie is throwing her friends under the bus, i.e. Jenna and Kayla. At Redemption, Darren is speaking to Darrell about how they are doomed in the game and the women at the Redemption are weak. Even Latoya, according to Darren, which shocks Darrell because for some reason Darrell thought Latoya was strong. And they're talking about it in the way that they're assuming that Redemption is going to be a huge team game. And Amanda talks about having Darren's back in any scenario. We go back to the main house with everyone partying at the club. Banana confronts Corey and things are getting tense between the two of them, where Corey mentions yet again that he's going to take out Bananas, CT, and Derek. And it's interesting that Jordan isn't thrown in there, but I guess because Jordan really isn't like an older vet. But that's besides the point. Nelson sees that things are getting tense again, so he literally rushes over there to defend his boy, so he confronts Bananas and pushes someone from the production crew, I believe, and things are getting rowdy as hell, and that is a sign of Nelson's anger issues in the season, where Bananas notes that Nelson is the little brother that wants Corey's approval. We have a segment of Tony making some good eggs with protein, and then he mentions that Carmilla looks like his mother at 60, where she mentions immediately that she's voting him into elimination. Tony and Carmilla continue to argue, and people already know that Tony is drunk, where he is threatening to go home. Bananas is actually being a good friend to Tony and is sending him to go to bed since he has 2 daughters and he clearly doesn't want a repeat of Rivals 3. Bananas mentions this to Carmilla, who doesn't give a shit since it isn't her fault that Tony doesn't know how to use a condom. That's pretty funny, and she's absolutely right on the money with that. It is the morning, and Tony remembers Carmilla saying something about his mother, though he was the one who brought up his mother. The winning team talks about their nomination choice, where Carmilla pushes for Tony and CT pushes for Emma due to being weak, and Corey is stuck on Bananas. Anissa and Tori push for Jenna and Kayla, where it is known that the two women will choose Camilla, who will win in elimination and come back pissed off. Carmilla throws a bunch of strays at Tony for Emma performing better than him in 2 challenges than Tony has in 4 seasons, but Emma and Kayla end up getting nominated. Corey pushes for Hunter and Nelson, especially Nelson, to go after Bananas since he is tired of the weak gameplay season after season after season and thinks that Nelson is scared. And Camilla is speaking to Jamie about Jenna being safe because Kayla is her shield, where people target Kayla first. And she is doing this in case Jamie pulls the double cross. Jamie does get the double cross and sends in Jenna without hesitation, despite Jenna being the one who saved her from being purged, but Jamie knew that everyone wanted this to be done anyways. Nelson picks the double cross and ends up choosing Tony, despite what Corey wanted, which was Bananas. But it probably made sense, since Bananas probably would have beat Ammo anyways, and Nelson is tired of Tony not doing anything in 4 seasons. And they clearly have issues from last season. The Great Escape is the elimination where they have to climb a wall with pins that they have to enter and push the mud on top of the wall. Kayla and Emma do beat Tony and Jenna, and Kayla crashes off the house since they were trying to help Jenna and she had to send her best friend home. Tony and Jenna arrive to the Redemption House, and Tony is told that his brother is not there due to his fight with Simone. Amanda is thrilled that Jenna is here since she sent her here and Jenna's friends turned on her. Jenna knows that the women do not like her at all, and everyone is shocked about the Jemmy situation. A lot of them want Corey and Camille's heads on a platter. Veronica talks about taking a lot of time off from doing challenges, so she had to make a bunch of friends this time around, and that's what she's doing, and she does feel good about it. Jamie doesn't feel bad about her move, and Veronica, Jamie, and Nicole call out Marie for her shitty move, since she didn't expect for Jenna and Kayla to go against one another. It is announced that instead of them playing in a challenge, they have to watch the purged contestants come back to play for a redemption spot back into the house. The first 8 people are competing in Man Overboard, where one man and one woman will win their spots in the house where everyone else goes home. 2 people face one another in the swinging platform over water, and whoever falls first into the water is out. And I really do like this. It's a mix of physicality and endurance. So they will do this tournament style until one man and one woman is left. Darrell takes out Devin, Amanda takes out Latoya, Tony takes out Derek, Jenna takes out Brianna. In the final rounds, Tony takes out Darrell, though it's very close between the two of them, and Jenna takes out Amanda. Devin was still the scheming person, as usual, which we saw here, but he couldn't really do anything. Props to him for separating the fight with Simone and Shane, but this is definitely an underwhelming sophomore season for him, where he was already seen as a layup on his first season. Latoya really just isn't a good competitor, and I don't even remember her being funny this season, or at least in a memorable way. I know she's done with reality TV now, as I'm recording this, but when you have when you have 3 very poor performances, there's really nowhere else for you to go on a show like this. Derek definitely underperformed the season, despite him being really strong, and he definitely had a corny factor to him, but we know that MTV still believed in him, so this isn't his last chance. Though it does kind of suck that him going home early is kind of why Tori ended up with Jordan and them having that affair after the season. It was nice for Brianna to get another chance to return after being screwed over on Rivals 3 due to her partner quitting, but she got a fairer shake here and still didn't do anything notable or memorable. So this being her final season makes sense, and she was an alternate here who was lucky to make it on. Darrell was a shock boot due to Corey sending him home, and they were really hyping up the whole Darrell and Corey thing, but it never materialized with this early boot, and Darrell not making on the next few seasons, though they were supposed to be partnered with one another for Final Reckoning, but Devin's father's death caused him to stay back a while, then they wanted Devin to come back, so they paired him with Corey, and then Darrell was taken off the cast, and by the time Darrell came back on Double Agent, it's been over 3 years, and Corey was on his best behavior after his behavior on Final Reckoning. So that's kind of why this went nowhere. Amanda was still pretty messy and a shit talker, but she was purged before she could do anything. And I guess the final round with her and Jenna was one of the main things this season that continued their feud. Jemmy isn't happy since her big move was all for naught, essentially. So pretty much nothing changed from the last elimination, and the Bananas crew is happy that Tony has a chance to redeem himself. Marie speaks to Jenna to clear the air since she was collateral damage in the plan to send home Kayla, and she didn't want Jenna going into the elimination, though Marie denies ever knowing or ever throwing Kayla under the bus. Jamie speaks to Jenna about how she isn't going to apologize, but it's what everyone wanted to be done anyways. It's not really an argument, but Jamie and Nicole mention that people like Jenna more, but they still hate Kayla. Kayla is freaking the hell out, and she is venting to Corey out of all people, where she is sick of being targeted and disliked. Next episode starts with Tori making accents and wearing wigs and costumes, and she literally did this on 40, and I'm watching that season as I am doing this season. So it's crazy how some things literally do not change, even if it's been 7 years later. Marie is also in a costume, but no one is noticing her. Leary talks about staying under the radar and in the middle, riding waves of veterans, mainly Bananas, though he doesn't say Bananas' name, to the end, kind of justifying that is why he's a dirty player, which that's the opposite of playing dirty, that's coasting. But of course, something bad is about to happen with that talking point of Leary being mentioned here. Corey and Jemmy are talking, and he asks her why she took a few years off, where she mentioned that Knight's passing away took a lot out of her, so it's different doing this without him, and it's the first show that she has ever done without him. And it was nice that she talked about him a little bit here. Jordan is complaining about how dirty the house is due to the other cast members not cleaning. While I agree with him, I just recently saw an episode of Battle of the Eras where he put his dirty ass feet on a table at a club, so he kind of missed me with all of this. Jordan is ranting and complaining about this to people, and the house is starting to get annoyed with it. Pirate's Treasure is a daily that is in guy-girl pairs, where they have to pull a pirate's chest through several trials and tribulation and then open it. It's a fine enough daily, but it's really not the best in my opinion. Cara Maria and CT and Nelson and Veronica win the challenge, and we move on to the club, where Tony is feeling the woman, and apparently Jordan and Kayla are getting close. There is a freestyle happening on the bus ride home, where Jemmy jokes about him and Kayla, and he makes a freestyle about her Down syndrome face, which shocks everyone. People are even more shocked since this is coming from someone who has a disability, making it even worse. Anissa goes after Jordan and he supposedly pushes her, which causes a bunch of people to get riled up against him even more. And she calls him out for being entitled. And it's ironic that they were essentially forced to be partners on Ride or Dies. Jordan does actually feel bad, and Jamie is crying her eyes out. Nelson is trying to defend Corey to CT, though some of them want to throw in Jordan. Carmaria throws in Marie since she threw her two friends under the bus, though Veronica mentions that sending in Kayla is good, since her name has already been thrown out there. Marie gets voted in, and Veronica clocks that Maria is targeting the people who wants to target the strong woman out, and Jordan is thrown in as well, where he does apologize to Jemmy. Anissa picks the double cross to send in Tori, which Tori will most definitely remember for later, and Ammo is chosen in the double cross by Derek. The elimination is striptease, where they have to rip stickers off of the other person, where they have to do it blindfolded, and then we have a to be continued here. It is a pretty close elimination, but Jordan does beat Ammo and Tori beats Marie. Ammo passes out and is having a panic attack, where Ammo is taken to the ambulance. Tori is pissed off at Anissa, and Anissa knows that she done fucked up. Marie arrives to the redemption house, and it is announced that Ammo quit the game. I did find Ammo to be an interesting addition to the cast, with being a stronger competitor than what was initially expected of him just based on his appearance. At the same time, with how they reacted to the elimination with the panic attack due to suffering from a PTSD where they were SA'd a year prior and then quitting due to it, maybe showed that the show wasn't the best for Ammo, especially with how graphic some of the challenges are and other reasons. So it makes sense why they never came back. We are given some history about Anissa and Veronica, where they met on Battle of the Sexes 1, where Anissa and Rachel had a thing for one another, but she and Veronica, i.e., Anissa and Veronica, didn't get along the best, since supposedly Anissa didn't accept Veronica for who she was as a person. Rachel and Veronica dated for 3 years, and Veronica is trying to be hush about the situation in respect for Rachel, though I do remember Tanya talking about it back in the day, and it was aired, so it really wasn't a secret. Anissa is flirting with Veronica and mentions that she is better than Rachel, where it is made to look like they hooked up in their bed, though there's more to this than what we see, and Veronica doesn't remember it, and she thought it was a joke. But we're going to talk more about that in the reunion. There is talk about Nicole not being seen as a serious competitor, as she is here to party, so clearly something bad is going to happen to her. Ups and downs is where they have to place the labels of the 30 seasons in order, where one person is tied to a string and the others have to run to get them. It's interesting because Veronica mentioned that there was one chance before hers as she debuted on season 3, but it also shows that Road Rules All Stars was not considered a part of the show over 2 decades after it took place. I really like the daily, and we've seen a bunch like this afterwards. Anissa rolled her ankle. She is always getting injured. And Carmaria thinks that she's going to milk this, though Tori talks about how Anissa is a sneaky player. Brittany, Jenna, and Kayla are all talking about Anissa, though they are all talking about Nicole, who is a weaker layup, and Veronica as well. Corey and Anissa are nominated, and Anissa is complaining to Corey and Veronica about it. And Nicole pulls the double cross where she knew that she would have been voted in otherwise, where she sends in Kayla. Jordan pulls the double cross and sends in Hunter to take out his friend. The elimination is dead weight, where they have to climb a ladder while their feet are changed to the weights that have to break through the floor. I do like this elimination, though I see why it wasn't a regular one, and it ends with Kayla eliminating Anissa and Hunter eliminating Corey. And I'm not doing the to be continued bullcrap here. Tony is talking about making a lot of progress with his girls, i.e., his daughters and his girlfriend. Brittany is talking to her mother that she loves and supports, and Daria is talking about Ashley, where they are currently dating. And he's no, I think he's talking to her on the phone actually. And Daria is bragging in the confessional about having Dominican and Polish kids with her. That's the goal, but they do not last, so that doesn't end up happening. Corey and Anissa are joking in the redemption house about them never hooking up again, and Marie feeling like a third wheeler, though they are definitely flirting with one another. Talk 30 to Me is the daily where they are answering trivia about the sea, where they have to put X's on other people in the cast, and this is an interesting twist to handle the daily that we've seen several times before this and several times after this. Camilla and Tony win the daily, and he is talking about proposing to Alyssa, where we have Brittany talking to Tony about facing elimination, and they're at the club celebrating Carmaria's birthday, where Camilla talks about their relationship slash friendship. Camilla whispers to Tony on their way back home on the bus that they can do whatever they want with the power. He leaps over the back of the bus to make out with her. She tells him to think about what he is going to do. He mentions that there's nothing to think about, and then they end up making out when everyone is off the bus. Of course, everyone is realizing what is happening, and Camilla is walking back into the house drunk as hell, which will involve something horrible happening. She is getting grounded on by Brittany randomly, and Tony is talking about what Camilla is doing to him, though he's putting all of the blame on her, though the cameras clearly show otherwise. Carmaria is whispering to people about what Tony and Camilla were doing, and Leroy is ranting about no one wanting to go against the strongest player to Hunter. He is he's talking to Bananas, and he references Bananas and Camilla as strong competitors that people might want to take out, and he says something about a she. Camilla ends up entering, and she picks a fight with Leo about this, where she wants to know who he is talking about. And there's a back and forth about who is the she. Liu tells her that she is drunk. She calls him an idiot who hasn't won a season. She calls him a black mother effing pussy, and Liu handles it very calmly, where he tells her to keep digging a deeper hole for herself. Camilla is walking away, where Bananas, for some reason, felt like this was a good time to throw a pillow at her, which only just made the situation even worse. She's freaking out about who threw the pillow at her, yelling, "Who threw the pillow at me? Who threw it?" Due to her racist pathology, she assumes that it's Leroy, so she throws it at him, despite him not even being in that direction. She leaves and then yells about quote unquote black motherfuckers like that piece of shit. That is verbatim what she said. And she grabs weight to throw it at people. We see a bunch of confessionals where people are lecturing her about this, and they are supposedly in their reunion clothes, or the clothes that they were before entering the reunion, because they apparently the producers were going to edit this out, but the cast demanded that they would show it, or else they would not do the reunion. Though a part of me is wondering that they wanted this to be shown so they can kind of cover Tony's cheating. Camilla comes in to throw a bunch of things in the room, and it came out on social media that Camilla also threw racist rhetoric at Nelson as well during this night. She also did this to Brendan on past seasons, and of course, there's the whole blackface situation with Ty. And notice that there's never been any report about her doing this to Corey. So she can clearly distinguish that she knows that Corey and mixed men like him aren't black. I mean, there's nothing about her doing this to someone like Adario as well. So I'm stating this because I want people to know that there's a difference between mixed people and black people. So people acting like people don't get the difference based on some stupid right supremacist rhetoric, yeah, yeah, people can tell the difference. But either way, Camilla's antics aren't acceptable, and she really should have been pulled from the house. Honestly, they shouldn't have even enabled her BS this long since she's doing stuff like this as early as her first season, but they just enabled it, essentially. People talk about Camilla's racist antics, and Jeremiah even mentions that she attacked black men. So clearly, it wasn't just Leroy that night, and Jeremiah's comments just mentioned that. Camilla comes back and doesn't even apologize, where she speaks to Tony first, where she claims about what happened last night, and she claims that she wants clarification, and she conveniently picks what she does and does not remember about it. They were going to go on with a nomination, with TJ entering to do that until Leroy cuts him off to talk about what happened the night prior. She claims that she is sorry and knows people aren't going to forgive her. Leroy talks about how he forgives her and he doesn't think she is racist or prejudiced. He will change his mind on this with the video he released in, I believe, 2011. Sorry, not 2011, 2021, where he talked about production, the cast, and Camilla's antics and how none of them handled it correctly. But Leroy is hoping that people will talk Camilla after this. Nicole and Nelson are nominated, and we have Corey and Anissa going on a horse ride talking about how their relationship improved over the last few years, where Marie is just over their dynamic. Jordan double crosses Hunter, as this was the plan all along with all of the guys, and Jenna double crosses Brittany, which she saw coming. Or she saw that was coming. The elimination is Rampage, where they are attached to one another and have to roll the other off the ramp, and this is a strength and endurance based elimination that I really, really, really like. Brittany beats Nicole and Nelson beats Hunter. Nelson is adjusting to being by himself with his allies being gone, and Brittany's feeling confident about winning her second elimination and her placement in the game. Hunter and Nicole arrive at the Redemption House. Corey isn't shocked at all that Hunter arrived, and Hunter is insistent on going after Jordan. Tony does not want to discuss with the producers about his cheating, since they tell him that it is on camera and he has to prepare for it to be aired. No wonder why his now wife feels a way about him supposedly being on the show in the current day, since it kind of affects his recent appearances, which we will get into once we get there. CT makes a cake of Leroy's birthday, who ends up throwing it up because it's, as Carmeria states, it's really just a bunch of butter, but it's the thought that counts, so that's nice of CT. This is also where Camilla is going to be edited out of the season, and we won't really see her in the confessionals again outside of some here and there, though it's nowhere near the amount compared to how Dee was completely removed from the edit, though what Camilla did is so much worse than what Dee did. Nicole reports to Anissa about how all the girls alliance think that she is the devil incarnate and that she is faking her entry. And it's crazy because this was kind of a talking point going all the way back to the Inferno 3 with Anissa, if I'm remembering correctly. But anyways, Anissa is pissed off. Tony is getting pranked on, where there are a bunch of feathers on his face, and he is pissed off, where he threatens to flip the bed on Bananas, and he's getting in Bananas' face. And it's all misplaced anger, but of course he calms down quickly. Jamie has a dream about Anissa coming back, and she tells the girls about it, and she was definitely right on this one. Green with Envy is the second redemption challenge, which the cast isn't watching as they're eating at some restaurant or whatever. But the people competing in this have to eat a bunch of girls' food, and they have to find emeralds and balls to veto eating certain food, and whomever guy, or whichever guy and girl eats the most food the quickest will return to the house. So, during this dinner with the cast that are in the game, they all agree to target the returnee of this redemption challenge as soon as they come back. Hunter and Anissa are the ones who end up coming back into the house. Marie lasted a bit longer this season, but it was still a relatively uneventful season for her, where she was a mess politically with the whole Kayla and Jenna thing, and it quickly came back to bite her in the butt. Nicole had some funny one-liners in her last few episodes, and I really like her Camilla hatred, but she really didn't do much this season. She wasn't a strong competitor and didn't have many connections, so I see why her time on the show comes up to an end soon, and you can even barely count next season as being another season for her. Corey's plan to target the champs and the best veterans is very smart, but the issue is that he said it out loud and he didn't have the numbers or the competitiveness to really back all of it up. He did have a few hookups yet again and was a bit messy, but his bad luck will continue for another few seasons where things really aren't going well for him. Cara Maria and Tori especially are pissed off that Anissa is back, and I still don't know how the hell Tori and Anissa became friends after this. But she kind of snacks at Tori to press at her, but of course Tori doesn't respond, which only just makes Anissa feel more cocky. They are getting phone calls from their lovers, and Tony's girlfriend Alyssa talks about how she knows about his hookup with Camila, and it is by their internet. So she's clearly referring to the chance spoiler accounts like Pink Rose and Gamer Reef talking about it and reporting about it, which Tony, of course, denies. Ashley is calling Dario as he is talking about playing in the middle, but that's not going to work soon, and Derek is talking to his son, where he's struggling being away from his son. I don't know if Derek was divorced at this point in time, or maybe it's different because his son is so much older compared to when he was on his last few seasons. Hunter calls his girlfriend, who essentially dumps him, and they're arguing over the phone, where it is just a complete mess. He is claiming that he's getting fucked for the rest of his life, and he also vents to Nelson, who is very supportive. Saved by the Bell is the daily where they have to be split into teams, and they have to get their team across the block of bells. Anissa kind of leaves Veronica hanging, causing her to be eligible for elimination. And we do learn that Hunter tried to get with Kayla a bit before last season, and she rejected him for Corey, so they've had tension due to that. And I like that additional context. It is a decent enough daily, but it really isn't a standout in my opinion. Hunter's team wins, which includes Kayla, Camilla, and CT. Jordan knows that Hunter is going to come for him, and CT mentions that Daria and Veronica, the two people not chosen for the challenge, haven't done shit in the season, so the both of them need to go. Hunter is on a power trip, and Kayla is complaining about it to the woman, where CT is trying to kind of train and mold Hunter, since Hunter is used to winning, so he's getting a bit power hungry here. Everyone is celebrating at the club, and Hunter is complaining about hating Kayla's voice, and she is not a good competitor, where he comes at her. She tells him to get the hell out of her face. He mentions that no one likes her, and the two of them are just going at it. This fight is so unnecessary, really. And she mentions that she won 2 challenges and eliminations. He mentions that he beat her man, i.e. Corey. She mentions that he isn't her man, which he isn't. She has a boyfriend. Hunter mentions that Kayla is mad that Corey chose Camilla over Kayla, and it's just a mess, and she continuously makes fun of his voice, which I found to be pretty funny. Though Brittany is trying to side with Hunter since they are from the same Are You the One season, and she also hates Kayla. We have a very long confessional that is literally fast forwarded of Brittany ranting and trashing Kayla where they ran out of tape. And to be honest, it's very hilarious in my opinion. Nelson talks about these old ass men, though I think they're only a few years older than Nelson, if my math is correct. And Derek asks him who he's talking about. Nelson mentions that he can see him in elimination. They end up shoving one another and getting in one another's face, where Nelson literally punches Derek in the face. This literally came out of nowhere, and Jamie mentions that Hunter didn't do shit. Well, she was the one who was separating the fight. Nelson is talking about how he was getting ready to go to bed, and he's claiming that Derek went into his face. Derek, Anissa, and Bananas are talking about how that was random and Nelson is done, where Bananas lays into Hunter for trying to defend Nelson, where the two of them are going at it and the security is separating them. Nelson is taken off the show, and we see CT and Derek talking about setting a good example for the kids, and they aren't here to fight people. Kayla is pitching for Brittany and Anissa to go into elimination, though the others want to send in Veronica and Dario as well. CT is pushing to send Nelson in after last night's events, It is the nomination ceremony, and it is told that Nelson was pulled from the game. While Nelson wasn't boring this season like he was on his first season, his huge anger issues this season was so unbecoming since they were for nothing and he was ready to get violent over nothing burgers, essentially. Obviously, the fight with Derek came out of nowhere, but he also tried to fight Bananas, I believe, earlier in the season with something that didn't involve him at all. He comes back the very next season, so there clearly was no damage done regarding this event at all, but it's still a pretty weird showing for him. And it's a shame because he could have made it deep in the season without it. We continue with the nomination ceremony, which ends up with Dario, or Sleeping Beauty, as CT calls him, and Veronica being nominated. And Kayla thinks that Veronica is weak, despite her being a strong person in the past, supposedly, according to Kayla, and Veronica takes some shot at Kayla in the confessional. Veronica tells Anissa and Derek that she wants to go in against Brittany, and Anissa quickly calls out the other women are going to have her go against Veronica. And Veronica doesn't feel like she has anything to prove against these women since she literally birthed them. She didn't say that last part, but I'm essentially saying it. Jenna, out of all people, is talking about Tony being the man's bitch as they can kill his puppy and he'll still side with them. It should see the female counterpart of Tony. Anyways, Tori pulls the double cross to send Anissa in against Veronica, and she feels good about getting her payback against Anissa, who did the same thing with her earlier on in the season. Jordan pulls the double cross to send in Tony, so that's what the Jenna comment was foreshadowing. Web of Flies is the elimination, where they have to go through the webs to get the key to a flag, and then puts the flag in the pole at the top, and it is a good elimination for sure. Tony beats Dario and Veronica beats Anissa, where it is announced that the Redemption House is still a thing. Which, honestly, they should have just ended it after the second one, in my opinion. As soon as Anissa leaves, Veronica throws Anissa under the bus, and she is glad that Anissa's gone, since she is not liked, and she is saying this to Brittany and Jeremy. Though both of them are also at the bottom and are presumed to be the weaker women, where they are all bashing Kayla and Jenna specifically after the other women. No one is happy with the Redemption House still existing, and Tony is talking to Hunter about how when he went to the other room, it was silent, but it seems like the two of them are starting to align with one another, which is smart on their part. Camilla speaks to Kayla and Jenna about how she feels like she protects them, but they don't protect her, where it would make sense for her to protect them, but it's clear that the tension is growing, where Kayla and Jenna is getting tired of Camilla and Cara Maria. Blackout is the daily where they have to go into one of the 3 blackout rooms and then scratch the paint from the walls where they see numbers, which gives them a combination that they have to break. And then they have to make a puzzle. TJ announces that the winners of the challenge not only gets to nominate 2 people, but send 2 people into the Redemption House, eliminating them. This daily kind of grated on me, for sure, with all the nail scratching, and I always get queasy when I do that in reality, and seeing other people do that really just bothers me. But outside of that, it's fine enough. Kayla's team wins the challenge, which includes Brittany, Veronica, Jordan, and Tony, where they send in CT, mainly due to Jordan pushing this, since giving CT 1 chance instead of 2 chances to boot him makes sense. Or, sorry, giving him 1 chance instead of 2 chances to save himself. And Cara Maria is also sent in, where she thinks it's dumb since there are still a few more challenges after this. Veronica is pushing for Camilla to be nominated since they just eliminated Cara Maria, but the women don't want to do that since Camilla is good at eliminations and can double cross their allies, and the men want to run a final with her. A lot of the women they end up nominating Jemmy, and a lot of the men want to nominate Hunter. Jemmy is nominated, and Brittany gives a burn vote on Leroy, which causes Veronica to take advantage of it, which is essentially the same thing that I believe she did on the Ruins. And this also caused the votes to get Leroy nominated, where DM did the exact same thing to Leroy on Rivals 2, where Teresa and Nanny burned against him. And Tony also flips on Leroy here. Of course, Leroy and Johnny are pissed off about what happened at the nomination ceremony, and Kayla asks Jordan about what to do if she picks the double cross, and Jordan is pushing for Camilla to be chosen instead of Tori, who he wants to run a final with, and Camilla gets frazzled, according to him. Derek chooses to double cross Hunter, who is of course pissed off, and Jenna chooses to double cross Camilla, who freaks out on Kayla and Jenna, knowing that they aren't sorry, and Kayla is over Camilla's intimidation tactics. Body check is the elimination where they have to rush through the door, and there will be some sort of physical contact, but they have to run to ring the bell. Camilla beats Jemmy and Hunter beats Leroy, though he injures his hand due to the elimination. Backstabber is the daily where they are walking the plank at the top of a 600-foot building where they have to slap an X across each beam. And it's a decent enough daily, but it ends up with Hunter beating Derek and Jenna beating Camilla. They have to decide who out of the people who dropped to send to the redemption house, where the two send in Jordan, which he expected, and they also send in Veronica. CT and Carmelia want answers from Veronica and Jordan about their boot, where Jordan mentions that the guys do not want to run a final with Carmelia since she is not easy to get along with and she frazzles under pressure, where the two of them go at it and she's offended by it, especially since she is a winner. Carmelia ends up dumping Jordan's bag in the pool and Jordan is unfazed, since bags float. They are also fighting about where he sleeps since she does not want him sleeping in her room. I also have to mention that I really do not like the fact that people can end up getting eliminated without getting purged or getting eliminated via an elimination. So sending people automatically to the redemption house, even if they didn't get last, really just rubs me the wrong way. Camilla is freaking out to Jenna over being turned on, where she never made any other promise to her and Kayla, and Jenna is disengaging from it completely. Hunter and Jenna still have to choose a guy and a girl to go into elimination, where Derek and Camilla are thrown into elimination. Camilla then calls out Tori of all people because she feels like Tori turned the other two women against her, and then we have Camilla and Jenna arguing during the ceremony. Tori is pissed that Camilla does not let her speak, and things are getting tense between the two of them. Camilla and Tori then argue where Tori does not want to be her friend and she says nasty things and gets personal. She's accusing Camilla of doing this, and Tori is yelling at the top of her lungs. And Tori yells at the top of her lungs to get out of her room! Get out of my room! Get the fuck out of my room! It's very rare to see Tori this riled up, so it's definitely a shocker. We go to the elimination, and Tori gets the double cross to send in Brittany, who she doesn't see as a strong competitor. And Tony gets the double cross, where Bananas has to go in since there's no one else. The real world is the elimination where they have to jump over a large wheel, which is connected to a rope that will wrap around it, and they have to do that as many times as possible. It is a pretty good elimination where we see Camilla wash Brittany in it, and Derek does beat Bananas. Jordan and Brittany arrive at the redemption house, and Jimmy points to us about believing Bananas being cursed since he took Sarah's money, and she was right about this. And there are more people in the redemption house than the current house, and Tony is talking to himself in his room about it. Brittany is still not over the Tori betrayal, and Tori at the house is accurately talking about Brittany trashing her, and they ironically want Anissa to beat Carmelia, so it's interesting how things turn so quickly. It is the third and final redemption challenge where they have to poke their heads through the hole, but not for long, since they'll have their heads bobbed. But after remembering the code, they have to complete a puzzle, and I do like this redemption challenge. Maria went her way back into the house, eliminating Anissa, Jemmy, Veronica, and Brittany. Due to Nelson's DQ, two guys are coming back, and we see CT and Jordan win their way back to the house, with Dario, Leroy, and Johnny getting eliminated. Seeing everyone hate Anissa and her kind of embracing her bitchiness was kind of fun, though her interactions with Veronica get a bit uncomfortable once you get to the real meat and dynamics of it, which will definitely be brought up in the reunion. The house was making fun of Dario for doing nothing, being Sleeping Beauty, and getting no screen time, which was the death knell for him. And I do remember Jemmy claiming that he would be the person on the real world who doesn't get any screen time. So it isn't shocking that he never came back to the flagship, but he is returning on All Stars 5, so we will see what happens with him there. Jamie definitely had her cutthroat moment in the season, especially early on, and it was nice seeing her come back after Knight's death, but she was mainly reduced to commentary after the first bit of the season. Leroy was bragging about riding people's coattails to get to the end and justifying him being seen as a dirty player due to that, which was frustrating, and it ultimately led with him being randomly flipped on yet again. Obviously, the racism moment was horrible, and I do give him props for not freaking out, though he knew the optics if he were to have freaked out. But I do have some issues with certain elements of how he handled it, with returning the very next season and some of the stuff he spoke about a few years after this. Veronica was a nice return after doing one season about a decade earlier, and she still showed that she had some strategic cutthroat moments, and we learned more about her sexual history, but her comeback goes downhill quickly after this. Brittany performed better than what I remembered, since I forgot that she won 2 eliminations in the season, and she had some decent commentary, but she isn't golden in that element either. But I do think she did enough to come back. I honestly don't remember a whole lot about Bananas this season. It is kind of the same thing as usual with him, with the I'm the best, I'm the king of the challenge, and all of that, and sticking with his group of people, but with nothing new this season. It's getting old and there's really no variance in it. Of course, there's tension between the two pairs of Jenna and Kayla and Carmaria and Camilla, where Carmaria is showing her ass while they are eating at the dinner, and Jordan calls out Carmaria for ruining the vibe of the dinner, and they are not girls. And she calls him out for being a condescending asshole. CT is talking about how there's a new generation of competitors and how the vets need to adapt. And this has been said so many times throughout the seasons, but I do give CT props for acknowledging that it is the older people like himself who need to adapt. And it seems like they're kind of propping Kayla up as the new queen, though that never really materialized. And Tori ends up saying this about Kayla. So we see Kayla and Carmaria talk, where Kayla mentions that Veronica and Brittany told Carmaria that Kayla sold her out. Kayla mentions the horrible things Camilla said, and Carmaria feels like going after Camilla is going after her, which I find to be very interesting. Hunter goes to the doctor, who tells him that if he does nothing for 3 weeks, his arm will be fine, but if he continues with the show at this pace, his arm will be fucked up for the rest of his life. And I do believe Hunter later confirmed that his arm is fucked for life. TJ tells the cast that they are playing for $1 million and announces the final purge, where 2 men and 2 women are going home after the daily. They are in pairs, so CT and Carmuia, Hunter and Kayla, Jordan and Tori, Derek and Camilla, and Jenna and Tony, where they have to run an obstacle course together and complete a puzzle individually. I'm not going through all the stages, but it's all pretty cool and intricate. CT and Carmuia are the first ones to get their spots in the final, and Tori and Jordan are the second ones to do such as well. The 4 are being sent off to enjoy their day, while the other 6 have another chance to get those final 2 spots into the final. Tony is talking about how he doesn't want to tell his kids that he was close to winning life-changing money. Hunter is trying not to think about his wrist and hand, and Derek talks about never making this type of money in his life, even in his challenge prize, since the money they got there from winning was a lot smaller. We get to the second part of the purge, which is snaking your way back in, where they are on a swing 30 feet above the water, and they have to go through a bunch of swings, move it, and then go into the water and wrap a rope around a buoy. Derek and Camilla get the final spots to the final, causing for Tony, Hunter, Jenna, and Kayla to be purged. Hunter had a huge underdog role this season, with being pinned against his young bucks, getting into a decent amount of drama, winning challenges, and then his injury, where he definitely should have been pulled, as I believe he now has permanent nerve damage. Tony always somehow manages to out-mess himself with cheating on his girlfriend with Camilla, the woman where things almost got physical between them on Rivals 3, and this is the first season that he made it far on, so he's somewhat improved as a competitor, but was still clumsy as hell. Overall, I do find it interesting how the misogyny of cheating protected him, but we will talk about more of that in the reunion. Jenna was boring, even when she was making more cutthroat moves, though that was more due to the aid of Kayla and her other allies, and I believe she only made it onto the season because Alicia had to eject last minute. She did 5 seasons straight, and I know she was an alternate who made it onto a few of them, so I'm fine that we are getting a break from her next season, though I believe an injury on Taps vs. Stars changed her challenge, career, and trajectory for good. Kayla still talked about how she was one of the best competitors ever, and she definitely showed some of that potential, but her being poised as the new queen of the challenge was just ridiculous and ill-fated. Kayla had a drama with Hunter, Corey, Carmaria, and Camilla, so she made the most out of it. This is probably her most tolerable season overall when it comes to likability or pseudo likability. So third place gets $15,000, second place gets $30,000, where first place gets $450,000, but they have to finish to get the money. We do have a location change, which wasn't a thing last season, where they will complete the final in Argentina. And this might be the final location change for the final, though I'm not too sure about that. But if it is a good way to end the era. The cast call their loved ones, and we see them starting their challenge, jumping somewhere out of a plane. Cara Maria is freaking out over having to do this, but we see Jordan getting injured after landing from the jump, so she definitely had a right to worry. But he says that he can walk it off despite his knee bothering him. The final starts with them donating some sort of stone onto the top of the ruins, then find 30 painted stones with their partner of the opposite sex. CT and Camilla are first, Derek and Carmaria are second, and Jordan and Tori are third at this point. They then have to throw a rope attached to balls on some sort of pole while drinking a nasty beverage shot. Stage 3 involves them running to get to complete a puzzle, and Derek is of course horrible at puzzles, where Carmaria is just really pissed off because he's the reason why they are left at this point, with CT and Camilla being in the lead and Jordan and Tori being second at this point. They get to a double cross where they can give a 5-minute penalty where CT and Tori double crosses Camilla and Jordan. They then have to individually run and then climb a mountain. Then there's more running for big, blocky puzzle pieces. There is a partner switch where CT and Carmaria are now partners. Camilla and Derek are partners now, where they enter some sort of smoking house to see words. It is finally the night time, and Tori and Jordan have the choice to choose two people to sleep outside all night, which is Derek and Camilla. It is the second day where they have to hold on to a plank while a truck drives them to a point. And then they have to run the rest of the season, or run the rest of the route to the finish line. They tell the cast that they won't find out about who went until after the reunion. This is clearly a rating stunt to boost the finale and the reunion ratings, but we're not doing that here, and I'm going to talk about the results now. I'm not going to wait until after the reunion to talk about it. So, Camilla and Jordan win the season, with Derek and Carmaria getting second, and CT and Tori getting third. Tori is definitely the rookie of the season, and it's amazing that she wasn't treated like a rookie at all, though she just gave that impression that she needed to be respected. She still kind of corny this season and was somewhat funny at the same time, but she didn't have a whole lot of storylines. There's definitely a lot of promise to Tori. Honestly, this is just a normal season for CT and kind of an under the radar one where he just relaxed and was the old man dad bod on campus, as he was just in a lot of the back shots with the vet men and didn't let anything stress him out this season. I found Carmaria to be very annoying and unlikable this season, and it's interesting that people only blame Polly for that, where she showed signs of this behavior well before he came into the picture. I am definitely on her side with the Tony mess, but I did not like the entitlement that she had with most of the cast, and she was more than fine with Camilla's racism since she's her ally, which definitely says a lot. Derek was an interesting person to come back, and after being gone for 7 years and 10 seasons, he definitely performed well on an individually formatted season, and he probably would have won had Nelson not DQ'd, causing for Jordan to come back in that third redemption. At the same time, he was definitely under the radar, not really interesting, and barely got screen time, so I somewhat understand why production made him an alternate in the next season, and he didn't come back as a player until All Stars. Jordan definitely had his unlikable moments throughout the season with the whole Jemmy situation, and I do think that he did too much with Cara Maria at the end. But getting a second win is impressive, though it's probably his weakest winning game, based on him only coming back due to nothing DQing, but he won the final injured, which is impressive, and who else can do that? Camilla's racism finally came to the forefront this season, though it was only done because the cast demanded it, and the behavior that she was exhibiting was enabled over the last 7 years bit her in the butt here. So not only her not getting DQ'd, but also winning the season definitely dropped the season, in my opinion. And it's even worse because she stopped appearing on the show not due to what she did on this season, but due to what happened on Taps vs. Stars, where she allegedly harmed a producer and was threatening self harm and destroyed production property. So, yeah. Definitely more than fine with her going, though. The Miz is hosting their reunion, though TJ makes an appearance, and damn near the entire cast is at the reunion, which is a first, and it will continue from all the seasons after this, or for all the seasons after this. We of course talk about Corey's list, and Corey wanted to take out the strongest competitor, Darrell. Bananas mentions that Corey made himself a very easy target. Darrell is still coming after Corey's curly head ass. They were supposed to be partners. I kind of mentioned that regarding the final reckoning thing. And yeah, Bananas tries to kind of pick a fight with Corey about putting himself out there and blaming the bedroom situation for the division that happened within the house. Jordan states that Hunter isn't a threat to win, despite targeting him the entire season, and then Nelson talks about his DQ, where he really is beating himself over it, and he immediately regretted it. Hunter feels like he accidentally instigated it. Nelson claims that Derek said something to set him off, so Nelson isn't really taking full accountability, and Derek kind of just wants the footage to be played, and he was proven wrong. The fight with Simone and Shane is discussed. Shane claims that a discussion was had that he didn't want to be a part of, which is race. He claims that she reached out for him first, and then Devon put him into a chokehold. Simone mentions that the conversation was about black women on MTV. I already discussed the context of it earlier. He said bitches won't let him talk. Then he got in her face. She moved his face when he was hovering over her and she was sitting down. He was standing up. He slapped her 2 times. She refused to look at him even during this exchange. He claims that he is sorry, though she claims that he isn't. Even the others mention that Shane is wrong. We move on to Derek and Tori's relationship, which has since ended because they had very different experiences on the show and season, and he mentions that she cheated on him with Jordan right after the final, where they landed in LA. Tori does end up apologizing to Derek, though she kind of says that she left him for multiple reasons. He calls her out for lying about it for several months, and he found out from Snapchat and social media. He calls her out for cheating on him and people sending him stuff. Tori mentions that Derek and her hung out with or in New York on the 4th of July. Someone sent her stuff that came from her phone. She hired an investigator, and she essentially accuses Derek of taking stuff from her phone and sending it to people. Derek doesn't hold anything against Jordan, and I'm glad he has this mentality. You blame the person you're in the relationship with. Tori's exes from her Are You the One show, who aren't even on the challenge, are on the reunion ending their commentary, which is really dumb, and I don't give a crap to give it really any air. Corey is fine with Kayla and Anissa now, and he claims that nothing happened with him and Camilla, so there's really no drama whatsoever. They all pull the double cross to see who's third, and I already talked about this, so moving on. We move on to part 2 of the reunion, and this is where the reunion starts to become more than one episode. From here on out, Kayla talks about her friendship with Jenna, and Kayla talks about the cast not liking her. Jemmye is questioned about her move against Jenna. Brittany throws some shade at Kayla, and the two of them go at one another for a bit, and Brittany isn't even on the stage. Kayla tells Brittany that she's barely on the show this season, and she should be in the audience. Marie talks about how her plan was to send Camilla home through Kayla, so all this was really just a misunderstanding. Cara Maria talks about how she never worked with Camilla until this season, and they recruited Kayla and Jenna, though she distanced herself from Camilla due to her racism being aired, essentially. Cara Maria also mentioned from the Twitter that she had at the time that was shown on the reunion, that she had tea to spill at the reunion, where we see her and Kayla going at it, where Kayla mentions that Cara Maria rode CT's coattails all season, and Cara Maria calls out Kayla for wanting attention and not letting her speak. They're screaming at the top of their lungs, and Marie yells at Cara Maria for some reason. Cara mentions that Marie needs camera time. Apparently, Kayla used Cara Maria's image to sell something, so Cara Maria supposedly sent her a cease and desist to not use her image for profit. Tony's cheating scandal and the feud with Cara Maria is discussed, and he apologizes for standing up to her, as he mentions that that is a microaggression, which I found that to be an interesting way of putting that, as she calls him and his brother out for their drinking and aggression issues. Tony doesn't want to address the situation on camera, or he didn't want to address it on camera while the season was taking place, and he was going to deal with it at home. So he got all of the guys to agree to not talk about it on camera. Tony's girlfriend talks about it, and Carmaria adds her commentary about how hypocritical everyone is about it, especially compared to a situation with Bloodlines. Everyone was attacking Camilla for being the other woman in the situation with Tony, but these are the same people who defended Tony, though he was the one who was in the actual relationship. She also brings up Tony's situation with Christina from Bloodlines, which was a good point, with how everyone was attacking Christina, despite the fact that she wasn't the one in the relationship where Tony was. And Carmaria also mentions that she was villainized for 3 years due to her situation on Bloodlines as well. Bananas mentions that the difference is that Carmaria came into that season wanting to leave the relationship with Abram, where Tony didn't want to do that, and honestly, I don't really buy this excuse. Or at least not in the way that Bananas is using it. Alyssa doesn't get why Carmaria cares so much. Honestly, Carmaria is absolutely telling the truth, but we do know that in a year's time, her relationship with Polly starts with cheating. So the racism scandal is talked about, and Leroy talks about how there was discussion about what was going to be aired or not. Leroy didn't want to act like the stereotypical black person in this situation. That's why he handled it the way that he did. Obviously, his mind has changed about it in the years since, especially with the way MTV handled it, or they didn't handle it. Leroy mentions that Camila stayed at his house once. Bananas mentions that Leroy is one of his best friends, and he gives him so much props for handling it the way that he did. Leroy mentions that Camila does this every single season, and others also mentioned this, but it was edited out. Anissa and Veronica's relationship is brought up, and Veronica definitely feels a way about it. Veronica didn't have trust in Anissa, but due to not knowing people, they grew closer to one another this season, though it was mainly due to proximity and a necessity. Both mentioned that they didn't hook up, but neither one of them remember what happened between them that night. Veronica talks about how no one on the cast was shocked about her relationship with Rachel, even mentioning that Mike knew, but they just didn't want it to be on the show. But Anissa brought it up in her confessional for it to be a storyline. Anissa is annoyed that Veronica didn't care about all that until the preview showed, and she mentioned that Veronica was a bully on her earlier seasons, and Veronica mentions that the scene on the show was painful, since she didn't remember it, and she does not trust Anissa. They claim that they're fine, but it doesn't really seem like it, and Anissa is still upset. Veronica has every right to feel the way she did, since she felt like Anissa was a bit too forward. But I do remember Tanya outing them during a special during the Inferno 2, which was aired, and we did see her mentioning it to Veronica, which was also during the fight that those two had on the ruins that got physical, and that was released as an extra clip online. So Anissa mentioning it wasn't the first time it was outed, technically. In conclusion, I think Dirty 30 is a solid season that definitely had a lot of competitiveness in it, but some of the purges and the redemption challenge being introduced kind of made things a bit more convoluted than they really needed to be, in addition to some of the ickiness that really was mishandled throughout the season, just really takes away from how great the season could have been. And unfortunately, some of this would carry on to Era 4. I didn't talk about it in this video, but at this point in time, the real world was essentially done, so there is nowhere else to cast, and with the real world done, a lot of their casting pool was essentially over and done with, and while they did recruit from Either One within the last 4 to 5 seasons, that show was also starting to go a bit downhill after next season, especially, so that was running dry as well. So they needed to find new people quickly. And this was where they came up with the idea of bringing people over from Big Brother. And obviously, this is when I started watching the show, and you'll definitely see how Big Brother influenced the show within the next era for sure. And then they also decided to cast people from the UK. I think a lot of them are on MTV UK, but I'm not too sure about that. So their plan was to cast from the UK and Big Brother, and we definitely see how that influenced the next few seasons after this. only for that to open a can of worms that I don't really think the show really fully recovered from. So I am working on the Era 3 recap analysis retrospective. As I am recording this, I've already started some of it. I don't know if that will be out before the Vendetta's review, whenever I get to that, because usually the Era recaps are very, very, very long, especially for this show. But yeah, I can't believe I am done 3 eras of the show, and I have another era to go. Though those episodes or those seasons are a lot longer, just due to each episode having an additional half hour and the episode cut for those seasons being longer. So I definitely think season 40 will finish airing by the time I make it through all those seasons. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll be back with more soon. Take care.